The Batman Arkham franchise has grown to become quite an extensive series, with a timeline that glides its way through 5 mainline games, a handful of spin-offs, a plethora of tie-in comic books, a novel, a VR experience, and a movie. But how does everything tie together? Well, for a standalone Batman timeline, it does a pretty good job of bringing all the iconic elements from across the Batman mythology together, albeit with the odd curveball. Then there's the introduction of the Suicide Squad into the mix, who each make plenty of appearances throughout the timeline before eventually starring in their own game. And to confuse matters somewhat, there's also Gotham Knights, which despite featuring many of the same characters from the Arkham timeline, is not set in the same universe. So don't make that mistake, I guess. With Suicide Squad killed the Justice League set to expand the canon of the Arkhamverse, what better time to recap the franchise's entire story? So from Arkham Origins all the way through to the Suicide Squad's quest to kill the Justice League, this is the complete Batman Arkham timeline explained. Naturally, our timeline kicks off with Batman Arkham Origins, which, like the 2022 movie The Batman, takes place during Bruce Wayne's second year as the Dark Knight. Rather unglamorously though, first up on our chronology is an Arkham Origins DLC challenge pack known as Initiation, which sees a pre-Batman Bruce Wayne travel the world on a rather unorthodox gap year. Our Bruce ends up in North Korea of all places, where he trains with the legendary martial arts master Kirigi at his secret castle dojo. Following his training in Korea, Bruce heads back to his hometown of Gotham City and establishes his alter ego of the Batman as a means to clean up the corruption rife in the city, from the streets all the way up to the top. And it's this fresh young Batman that we catch up with during his second year of bat service in Arkham Origins. Deck the halls with boughs of whatever, as Arkham Origins kicks off on Christmas Eve, with Batman pitted against 8 assassins on a decidedly unsilent night. Those 8 assassins, including among others Killer Croc, Deathstroke, Deadshot and Bane, are all after Bats due to a whopping $50 million bounty placed on his head by a ruthless mob boss known as Black Mask. This deadly night before Christmas sees our rather inexperienced Caped Crusader come head to head with each of these assassins as he attempts to cut to the core of the bounty, Black Mask. To absolutely no one's surprise, Black Mask is actually the Joker in disguise, and Batman eventually catches up with and subsequently thwarts the Crown Prince of Crime before leaving him in the welcome hospitality of the GCPD. Incarcerated at Blackgate prison, the Joker is left under the care of one Dr. Harleen Quinzel. And so begins a beautiful and deranged relationship that we'll catch up with plenty on this timeline. Naturally, the Joker doesn't stay in custody for too long, as he soon incites a riot to gain control of the prison facility, and establish a devious challenge to Batman's no-kill rule. Batman, realising he's way out of his depth, enlists the help of Captain Jim Gordon and the GCPD to retake the prison and defeat the Joker, which they eventually do, despite Joker's incessant goading for the Bats to kill him. The game ends with Jim Gordon letting Batman go, believing it's the best thing to do for the greater good of Gotham. Except there's a cheeky little post-credit sting that sees Amanda Waller visit and imprison Deathstroke to sign him up for a new team she's putting together, known as the Suicide Squad. More on them later. Just a short 3 months later, we catch up with the Caped Crusader wrangling with the Joker, Black Mask, the real one this time, and the Penguin yet again. With all 3 jailed at the titular Blackgate prison, Batman is called upon by Jim Gordon to infiltrate the penitentiary and shut each of the supervillains down. Complicating matters somewhat is one Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, who appears to aid our Bats but is secretly on her own mission for Amanda Waller, a mission to secure Bane. Long story short, Batman takes down the Joker, the Penguin and Black Mask, and Catwoman is arrested/rescued by Rick Flag alongside Bane, who's also in league with Waller. And in another post-credit scene, we learn that while Flag and his team had to return Bane to the custody of the GCPD, they did secure Deadshot and a lad called Bronze Tiger amidst the Blackgate riots. That Suicide Squad just got a couple of new recruits. Okay, so you might have noticed that there's a huge time jump between Blackgate and Batgirl, and while a fair few things happen in this period, none of it really happens in the game, so there's nothing really that I can show you. So let me run through the key points real quick. So, Arkham Asylum is reinstated. Dick Grayson witnesses his parents die and is taken in by Bruce Wayne, which sets him on the path to becoming Robin, a path that he walks away from 2 years later when he moves to the nearby city of Bloodhaven, where he takes up the mantle of Nightwing. Meanwhile, Jason Todd becomes the second incarnation of Robin before he takes on the Joker single-handedly and appears to be killed, a plot point that will have huge ramifications later on. And then a lad called Tim Drake becomes the third flavour of Robin in as many years, and it's this version of Robin that we see teaming up with Barbara Gordon's Batgirl in the Arkham Knight DLC, A Matter of Family. And breathe. Anyway, there's not much story in A Matter of Family. It's basically Batgirl and Robin rescuing Batgirl's dad, Jim Gordon, from the Joker aboard the offshore Seagate amusement park. They rescue Jimmy Boy, arrest Harley, but Joker escapes to terrorise another day. I know, I couldn't believe it either. Speaking of Harley, our next stop on the timeline is the stealth Suicide Squad movie, Batman Assault on Arkham. While Bats does appear, this tie-in movie sees Amanda Waller's Suicide Squad, made up of Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, King Shark, Black Spider, and Killer Frost, being tasked with breaking into Arkham Asylum to assassinate the Riddler. So how exactly does Batman come into a film sporting his own name? Well, he's on the hunt for a supposed dirty bomb that Joker has hidden somewhere in the city. How he's done that when he's back in Arkham is anyone's guess. And this leads him to cross paths with the Suicide Squad as they infiltrate the asylum. The Squad and Bats eventually go head to head where Black Spider supposedly manages to take out the Caped Crusader. The Squad then catch up to the Riddler, who manages to persuade them not to kill him in exchange for the knowledge of how to remove the nanobombs Waller has placed in each of their heads. The Squad agree, and Riddler manages to remove the bombs, but in the process rather messily kills King Shark, and in a twist that I reckon a fair few people saw coming, reveals Batman's disguise as Black Spider. As the Squad attempt to escape Arkham Island, all hell breaks loose. In the ensuing chaos, Harley rejoins with the Joker, who reveals his dirty bomb is actually in Harley's mallet, Killer Frost apparently dies at the hands of Bane, and Deadshot escapes in a helicopter, leaving Boomerang to the Arkham authorities. All of which leaves the loose end of Batman hunting down the dirty bomb, which culminates in a climactic fight between Joker and Deadshot, resulting in Joker getting dropped off the side of a skyscraper in a chopper that blows up. Miraculously, he survives, otherwise we wouldn't have the story of the Arkham trilogy. Speaking of which... yeah, here we finally are, at the very first game in the iconic trilogy, Batman Arkham Asylum. And boy does this one sure put the bat amongst the pigeons. Arkham Asylum kicks off with Bats and Joker sharing the front seat of the Batmobile, with the latter effectively giving himself up to the former in slightly mysterious circumstances. Inevitably, Joker breaks loose while Batman is escorting him into Arkham.
Joker's loose. Alert the warden.
And sets in motion his plan to seize power across the asylum. Turns out Joker has got wind of the Titan Project, a supposedly super secret research program that the renowned Dr. Penelope Young has been working on. Basically, inject yourself with Titan and you become a pro wrestler. While navigating Arkham Island, the world's greatest detective eventually traces the source of Titan back to a patient X, who turns out to be poor old Bane. Dr. Young has been draining him of the venom that turns him into the giant brick house of a man, and using it as a catalyst for her experiments with the Titan Project. Long story short, Joker makes a play for the Titan Serum, with a view to producing an army of Titan-fueled Bane-alikes, naturally. And caught up in the mix is a veritable who's who of Batman's rogue gallery, with Scarecrow, Zsasz, Harley Quinn, Killer Croc and Poison Ivy all making for absolutely stellar boss fight set pieces. As Arkham Asylum races towards its conclusion, Joker cordially invites Batman to a party in his honour, where he injects both himself and Bats with a dose of the Titan Serum. While Joker morphs into a WWE knockoff, Batman resists the serum, somehow, and injects himself with an antidote that he concocted from sewer spores, as you do. Then the two face off mano e Batmano on the rooftops of the asylum, with our Caped Crusader eventually coming out on top by punching Joker square in the face with a fist covered in explosive gel, which is a move that should have been useful at any other point in the game. With the job pretty much done and dusted, Bats hands over to a somewhat beleaguered Jim Gordon, and the GCPD round up all the remaining inmates. And with one final flourish, the game ends with a cheeky little post-credit sting which shows a randomised villain, one of either Bane, Killer Croc or Scarecrow, grabbing at a canister of Titan floating in the Gotham River. So before we jump into Arkham City, a lot actually happens in the 18-odd month gap between Arkham Asylum and its sequel. and large chunks of it take place across the tie-in comic series Batman Arkham City and Batman Arkham Unhinged. Now, it's well beyond my capability to try and regale well over 50 issues worth of plot lines in a short, succinct way, so let me break down some of the salient points that happen that will help set the scene for the grandstanding narrative of Arkham City. Firstly, Quincy Sharp, the Warden of Arkham, shuts down the Asylum in the wake of Joker's Night of Chaos, and successfully runs for Mayor of Gotham, because nothing says success like failing to look after an island full of deranged supervillains. With the Asylum officially shut down, the city looks to find a new location to house its supercriminals, and so Arkham City is born under the watchful eye of one Professor Hugo Strange. Making up a large chunk of Gotham real estate, Arkham City becomes a walled-off, open-plan jail built to house inmates from both Arkham Asylum and Blackgate Prison. And yes, you're right, that is a shockingly bad idea. Last, but definitely not least, is the bombshell that the Joker is dying. Yep, the iconic Bat-villain is on his way out. It turns out the effects of injecting Titan into his lanky little body were not good. Of course, a load more happens, but those are all the essential points to this timeline. So if you want to find out more, go and read the comics, eh? Right, with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's dig into Batman Arkham City's meaty narrative. The game kicks off with everyone's favourite billionaire playboy getting kidnapped by the Penguin, voiced by famously authentic Cockney actor Nolan North. Our mate Bruce manages to escape the deformed mobster and makes his way to the rooftops to don cape and cow and start kicking some ass. And first up on the ass-kicking list is one Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, who has caught a cat.
Heads or tails, kitty cat?
And owning two cats in real life, I know that's a difficult task. And has her suspended over some nondescript toxic waste which always seems to be lying around in Batman stories. Bat saves Catwoman, but his attention is immediately diverted to a bullet trying to lodge itself somewhere in his cranium. Using his world's greatest detective skills, Batman tracks the source of the bullet to a nearby church tower, where lo and behold it's Joker behind the trigger. Bats tracks his nemesis to the Sionis power plant, where he falls for the old fake Joker switcheroo, and promptly gets infected with Joker's disease-ridden blood for his faux pas. And so begins the main narrative of Batman Arkham City, Batman's one-man crusade to find a cure for the Titan-infused virus burning through his body. I guess I should also mention Professor Hugo Strange sometime around now too, seeing as he is the game's main antagonist. Well, as Bat zips, glides and punches his way around Arkham City, Strange's presence and booming voice lingers over proceedings, threatening something known as Protocol 10.
Protocol 10 is ready to begin.
As the hours count down to whatever Protocol 10 is, Batman bounces between iconic villains as he chases down Mr. Freeze for help in finding a cure. This desperate mission takes in the Penguin again, now secure within the Gotham Museum, and crucially Ra's al Ghul, whose immortality presents the key to cracking the cure. Long story short, Bat secures the cure before losing it immediately to Joker, and confronts Hugo Strange while Protocol 10 is triggered. Turns out Arkham City was all just a ruse for Strange to kill off every criminal in Gotham, thus ridding the city of crime altogether, admittedly by committing the ultimate crime in the process, but I'm sure he doesn't really care about that. Anyway, Batman stops him, only for a twist in the form of a knife in Strange's back, courtesy of Ra's al Ghul, who, it turns out, has been spearheading this whole circus from the very beginning. Before he dies, Strange triggers Protocol 11, which is much simpler than its predecessor, and basically just blows up his penthouse suite, and Batman and Ra's escape the resulting explosion and freefall from the tower, which ends well for precisely one of them, and not so well for the other. Arkham City reaches its conclusion with yet another Batman vs Joker climax, only this time Clayface is invited to the party. After dealing with the transmorphing villain, Bats necks the cure and watches on as Joker succumbs to his illness. Ice cold, Bats. And with that, the game ends with Batman carrying the Joker's corpse right out the front gate of Arkham City. Before I dive into the trilogy closer, let's take a quick look at what happens in the 10 or so month gap between Arkham City and Night. And the short answer is, not a lot. Obviously I'm simplifying things as stuff does happen, presumably Batman works out and stuff, but like the gap between Arkham Asylum and City, most of it doesn't really contribute to the greater narrative. One of the key plot points in the wake of Arkham City is the closure and subsequent redevelopment of that titular jail, and with Joker very much dead, Gotham City falls into a period of relative calm. I say relative as there are still a handful of iconic supervillains at large. Among them are the Riddler, who gets his own tie-in book, The Riddler's Gambit, Harley Quinn, who's the focus of not one but two separate story DLC packs, the second of which sees her breaking Poison Ivy out of jail in neighbouring Bloodhaven, and most importantly, the Arkham Knight, whose entrance on the Gotham scene is comprehensively chronicled in the Arkham Knight prequel comic book series. But that's not the end of it. Right before Arkham Knight kicks off on Halloween of Batman's 13th year, there's Batman Arkham VR, which I almost hesitate to place on this timeline because, well, none of it really actually happens, but what the hell. You see, Arkham VR plays the age-old narrative trick that it was all a dream, which is a massive cop-out in terms of storytelling, but hey, I'm not writing these games. To keep things simple, Arkham VR sees Batman investigate the disappearance of both Dick Grayson's Nightwing and Tim Drake's Robin, both of which end up dead at the hands of Batman himself in a psychological episode that Freud himself would have loved to analyse. It's absolutely bonkers, and as I said, none of it's real. Although it might explain why Batman's so hesitant for Nightwing and Robin to help in Arkham Knight. Speaking of which... Here we finally are, the grand finale of the Arkham trilogy, and Rocksteady really threw the proverbial kitchen sink into this sprawling narrative. In an escalation of the previous two games, Gotham itself is now under attack at the hands of the Scarecrow, who handily gives everyone a heads up that he's about to do some evil shit. This leads to a mass exodus of the city, leaving just the rotten eggs behind, and surely saving Rocksteady from having to render a fully open world Gotham with actual citizens knocking about. But maybe that's just me being cynical. And so Gotham is left to the criminals that define it. All the favourites are here. Penguin is smuggling weapons, Two-Face is robbing banks, hell, even Man-Bat is flying around the rooftops. But taking top billing is the titular Arkham Knight, a masked vigilante in Batman's image that has some serious beef with the Dark Knight. Armed to the teeth and backed up by a private militia, he's a formidable foe, hence Batman having to
Evening the odds.
Turns out the Arkham Knight is in league with Scarecrow to set in motion a bioterrorism attack that will hit the entire eastern seaboard. Caught up amongst it all is beleaguered cop Jim Gordon and his daughter Barbara, who unbeknownst to him is actually working for Batman as Oracle. The Dark Knight eventually tracks down Scarecrow's base of operations for his attack, known as the Cloudburst, and while he's limiting the blast radius, he's infected by Scarecrow's fear toxin, which mixed with the mutated blood running about in his system from Arkham City, leads him to start seeing hallucinations of his good old pal Joker. Which, in my opinion, is an inspired way to get a deceased Joker into your flagship Batman game. Bravo, Rocksteady. I digress. With Batman seeing the Joker everywhere, he hits the mean streets of Gotham to put a stop to the Arkham Knight and Scarecrow, which leads to some pretty dark places for the series. Chief among them, a sequence where Batman is unable to save a kidnapped Barbara from seemingly shooting herself in the head. On top of that, our Caped Crusader is unable to stop the Cloudburst from going off, which bathes Gotham in an eerie orange smog for a sizable chunk of the game. Admittedly, with the help of Ivy, who also kicks the bucket in this game, Batman is able to reverse the Cloudburst, but most of the game is still pretty doom and gloom for our dear Bats. Then there's the ongoing mystery of who the Arkham Knight is, and the answer is... drumroll. There's a desk over there, just so you know. Jason Todd. Yeah, the second incarnation of Robin who Batman thought had died at the hands of the Joker. Well, turns out he didn't. And he's seriously pissed, hence the vendetta against the Dark Knight. After a prolonged fight, Batman eventually gets through to Jason and appeals to his better nature. From there, Batman and Gordon track down the whereabouts of Scarecrow and find out that Barbara isn't dead. It was all a fear toxin based hallucination. Batman hands himself into the Scarecrow in return for Barbara and Jim's safety, and he's taken back to where it all started, Arkham Asylum. There, Scarecrow broadcasts the big reveal of who the Batman is to the world, and injects Bruce with more than enough fear toxin to kill the poor bloke. What happens instead is Bruce goes deep within himself, literally fighting the manifestation of Joker in his mind until he has full control again. It's really trippy. Controlling his fear, and with a little help from a redeemed Jason, Batman is able to overcome Scarecrow and the pair take him down and lock him up in GCPD. With Scarecrow behind bars and the Dark Knight's identity revealed, Batman sets about cleaning up the remaining threats in Gotham before initiating the Nightfall Protocol, which sees Bruce fake his own death in a massive explosion at Wayne Manor, allegedly. And the trilogy finally comes full circle in an ambiguous final scene which mirrors Bruce's parents' death, where a pair of muggers are confronted by a shadowy figure on a rooftop. Is it someone else taking up the mantle of Batman? A fear-induced hallucination? Or is it Bruce still alive and now a more extreme version of Batman utilising Scarecrow's fear toxin? Who knows? One thing's for sure, a lot happens in Batman Arkham Knight. All of which leads us to the final game in the series, well, for now at least. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. After all those teases back in Batman Arkham Origins and Origins Blackgate and, well, the film as well, the Suicide Squad have been a long time coming. While very little is actually known about the story of the game, we do know that it takes place right at the end of the Arkhamverse timeline and sees Arkham Asylum inmates Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, Deadshot and King Shark recruited by Amanda Waller for an assassination mission in Metropolis. Their targets? Well, the title kind of already tells you that, I guess. You see, classic Superman villain Brainiac has made his way to Earth and has brainwashed the Justice League, notably Superman, the Flash and Green Lantern, into going rogue. And that's pretty much all we know at this stage, but there's plenty of potential for the story to evolve in a now Batman-less world, so watch this space, I guess. And that, pals, is the Batman Arkham timeline fully explained. Do let me know in the comment section down below what other gaming timelines you might want to see, and while you're there, make sure to subscribe as we've got plenty on the channel already. Stuff like Metroid, Halo, Uncharted and Resident Evil. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.